So you want to write a book and you want to do it as fast as possible, then this video is for you, because I betcha that you've been thinking about writing a book, or maybe you're even in the process of writing the book, but you just don't know, do I have the time, the mental bandwidth to actually carry it through and finish it? And if that's ever been anywhere in your thoughts, then you definitely want to pay very close attention to the system, to the process that I'm going to cover in today's video. If you get value from today's video, I would really appreciate if you would completely annihilate that like button, give me a comment, and of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that, and actually click that little bell notification as well so that you could be notified when I post a new video. Because in today's video, we're actually going to step you through this really cool process that I know will help you if you actually employ it in your book writing ventures. So in this video, I'm going to show you how much time it really takes to write that book. We'll also talk about how many words different book categories generally are. We'll talk about creating a plan and a process and actually sticking to that process until the completion of your book. And of course, I'm going to infuse the entire conversation here with tips and tricks for actually writing your book faster, many of them found in my book, Real Fast Writing, shameless plug. And also, I'm going to talk about some of my personal experiences in writing books, and those experiences from authors that I've helped in this process. So let's get into it right now. So many wannabe authors don't ever start their book because they feel like it's going to be too doggone difficult. They don't have the time and the energy to devote to writing their book. They feel like they just don't have enough time. Now that's understandable because many of us heard so many of these authors of these, super famous books like Lord of the Rings. Heck, that took 16 years for Tolkien to actually write that book. Or let's take even a smaller, thinner book. Catcher in the Rye took J.D. Salinger 10 years to write. So if you have those sorts of ideas rattling around in your head, like, oh, this is going to be hard, this is going to take a long time, I completely understand why you wouldn't want to jump in and actually do it. But I just want to remind you that while that is certainly the experience of some authors, sort of on the other end of the spectrum, there's lots of very famous books that were written in a very teeny tiny amount of time. For example, Robert Louis Stevenson only took 6 days to write The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And Anthony Burgess wrote A Clockwork Orange in only 3 weeks. When you know what you're up against and you actually have a plan that you are going to work, it is actually possible to crank out the first draft of your book much faster than you thought possible. Now, when it comes time to actually write your book or to start your book, what is really super helpful is so that you have in mind how many words your particular category of book or the book that you want to write generally is. So let's talk about that for just a second, because if you have the guidepost, if you know approximately how many words you have to crank out to get to the book that you want to write, it's so much easier to get there. So let's talk, for example, about fiction. Like if you're going to write a novel, most novels are anywhere between 60,000 and 120,000 words, somewhere roughly in that range, okay? And if on the other hand, you are writing a sort of a standard nonfiction book, and what I'm talking about there is something maybe business related or political science, psychology, history, something along those lines, those books generally range in about the 70 to 80,000 word range. Or maybe you're going to do a memoir. Memoirs go anywhere from 80,000 to 120,000 words. Biographies, a little bit shorter. They can actually go shorter and longer, somewhere between 70,000 and maybe even 210,000 words, somewhere in that range. And if you like to write the kind of book that I like to write, my new book, The Best-Selling Author, How to Self-Help, about 40,000 to 50,000 words, which, by the way, is not all that many words, okay? And when you understand that you have that many words to write to get that first draft done, it's so much easier to get there. So let's now talk about how you go from 0 words on the page to 110,000 words on the page. And you do it with a plan, with a process. And that's what I want to walk you through right now. So you want to know how to find the time to actually finish your book. And this process I'm going to step you through right now has 8 steps that if you follow them and employ them, you will absolutely stand a much, much better chance of finishing your book. The very first thing you have to do, step number 1, is you have to determine what kind of book you want to write. What is your intention there? And of course, the approximate word count of that book. It's really important that you have guideposts. Know, in other words, your destination, where you're going. It's going to be much easier to get there with that. The second thing, once you've made that determination, is to sit down with your support system. So if that's your family, your spouse, your children, or maybe it's colleagues in your business or at your job, sit down and tell them what you are going to do and ask for their buy-in, for their investment in the book, so that they can actually support you and help you. How do they do that? By number 3, helping you to minimize distractions when you are writing. And you must sit and write pretty much every day, or at least 5 days a week. Okay, give me that. Give me at least 5 days a week. If you can't do 7, give me 5 days a week. And get your support system to buy into that by helping you to minimize those distractions. By the way, one thing that you could do is you could actually have a little do not disturb sign that you put on your door, so that when your children or your spouse sees that on your office door or wherever you write, they know, do not disturb you. The other thing that goes part and parcel with that, and it goes in with the support system buy-in, is you agree on when you are going to write. Okay? So for me, I love to write early in the morning. As a matter of fact, I cranked out my latest book, The Best-Selling Author, here by getting up at 4:30 in the morning. By the time I was awake enough, had my cup of coffee, about 5:30 in the morning, I started, and I cranked out about 1,000 words a day, some days more, some days less. But I had the buy-in from my children, and my spouse. Of course, they weren't up then anyway, so it didn't much matter, which is another strategy. Speaking of buy-in, I would appreciate if you would buy in to liking this video. Annihilate that like button, and of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. Also, hit the little bell notification. That'll let you know anytime I upload a brand new video for you. So the next thing you do after you get this buy-in and you've minimized distractions, step number 4 is you set a daily word goal and you track that goal. And what I suggest you do is set a goal somewhere between 500 and 1,000 words. Now, it could be another number for you, okay? That's not magical. What's magical is the daily discipline of actually doing it. As a matter of fact, if you have to start somewhere, start with a single sentence, 1 sentence a day. I'm serious, because 1 sentence easily turns into 2, turns into 3, and so forth. And because the threshold, the bar is set so low, it's easy to get over. Everyone can write at least a single sentence, but again, in step number 4 here, you're going to set a daily word goal. And then step number 5, and this is a really important point for a lot of folks, that is, you don't want to write and edit at the same time, which is going to really slow you down. I remember when I was in law school, I actually wrote onto law review. That's no big feat, by the way. You had to write on law review because you couldn't grade on. In other words, your grades weren't high enough to get on. But I wrote onto law review, and one of the things that was just pounded into us was it had to be perfect. And that caused me, at least, to write and edit at the same time, which really, really slows down the process. So write and then edit, okay? 2 different mental processes going on there. So don't try to do both, because it really is difficult to toggle back and forth between those 2 parts of the brain, because it actually uses 2 different parts of your brain to write and edit. So just write when you're writing. The other thing that's really, really important as you do this is set a timer. I have this little cool timer right here. It's a little timer. You set it, and that says 15 minutes, as you see there, and it's going for 15 minutes. So I say start with at least 15-minute writing blocks. And the other thing that's really, really crucial that you do as you sit to write is you only write. You only write. So you're not checking email, you're not checking your phone, you're not talking to your spouse. You're just writing. So yes, it does take, shall I say, an iota, okay, of self-discipline. But once you kind of get rolling with it, and knowing that you're only going to write for 15 or 20 minutes in 15 or 20 minute blocks, it is so much easier to know, oh, well, I have the idea to do this other thing, but my 15 minutes isn't up yet, so I'm going to keep writing. Okay? And you just keep on going. And then when you reach your goals, you reward yourself. I love to reward myself with a date. I usually give myself a date. These are from Costco. I love Costco. And that's how I reward myself. But you also, and this is step number 7, you must be flexible with your life, because, life does happen. And don't be so hard on yourself if you don't quite make a goal for a particular day. You don't want to let it go day after day. Matter of fact, I wouldn't let it go any more than one day, okay? Then get back on the horse and keep on trucking. But the main thing is that you don't want to be really hard on yourself. You just want to forgive yourself and keep on trucking on the next day. And then with this, what's going to happen is you're going to develop a writing habit. And that's where the magic comes in. That's where the momentum comes in writing your stuff. And one of the beautiful quotes that embodies this idea of getting into the habit comes from William Faulkner, who said, "I only write when I'm inspired. Fortunately, I'm inspired at 9 o'clock every morning." Therein lies the secret. It's the actual sitting down and doing it, even if it is a single sentence that you get done, okay? That's really what is so important. And when you do this and you develop a writing habit, you will start to see this momentum build. And if you are tracking your word count day to day, or writing session to writing session, you will feel even more inspired to keep on trucking, because you have that inner sense of satisfaction that you're accomplishing what you've set out to accomplish. And that builds upon itself until you actually push through and create that very first draft of your book. I do want to leave you with this one additional pro tip that I think you're going to love. And that is, I would suggest that you write in a Google Doc. And the reason I say that is because then you can write anywhere. You could write on your device. You could write on your your iPad or your tablet or your smartphone. Wherever you are, you can continue to write. As a matter of fact, you well know that much of our day-to-day life is spent actually waiting at the doctor's office, waiting in line to pick up your child after school, waiting to get your hair done. Those moments, those minutes could be spent actually writing a sentence or two or three, okay? Because you have access to your document right then, wherever you are, regardless of the device that you're on, okay? So I really hope that you got value from today's video. Let me know in the comments if you have a book, and if you do have a book, the title of that book, and actually put the link to that book. Let's give you a little promotion for your book in the comments below. And if you either are thinking about writing a book or you don't yet have the book done, well, also let me know in the comments how long you've been working on your book and whether or not you'll use any of the suggestions in this video. And the other thing I just want to leave you with, and this is a really important point, that if you already have, let's say, a nonfiction book, this strategy works best with a nonfiction book, like let's say a how-to book, for example, that you should think about taking your book and actually transforming it into an information product, because an information product actually has a higher perceived value in the marketplace. So if that's something of interest to you, then I have a video for you. Well, it's here, it's somewhere around here, that will actually teach you how to do that very, very quickly. I can't wait to hear about your success with your book. Let me hear from you in the comments below.